So what will be the objective of this unit? After studying this unit, you will be able to understand the fundamentals of object-oriented programming. That is also we have covered in the previous lecture, but we will discuss in this lecture also. Then we will able to explain the concept of inheritance in OOP. What is the main benefit of inheritance? What is inheritance? How you can do the inheritance in the Kotlin? We will do in the practical also. Describe the relationship between subclass and superclass. So whenever you are going to work in the inheritance, if you are using the inheritance, there will be a concept named as subclass and superclass relationship. So we will understand these what is subclass and what is superclass, how you can define the subclass, how you can define the superclass, and what is the relationship between these two. We will learn by today in this lecture. Understand the concept and the use of abstract class and methods. So in this unit, we will understand the concept of the abstract class. What is abstract class? How you can define abstract class in the Kotlin, and what is the benefit of abstract class and abstract methods. Explain the role and implementation of interface in the OOP. So you can say like these three concepts like inheritance, abstract class, and interface is you can say like advanced object-oriented programming concept. And in this unit, we will discuss about these three topic name as a interface, abstract class and method, and the interface. So there is a difference between interface and abstract class also. We can discuss in the next slides. So these are the topics that we will cover in this session. Basics of object-oriented programming. That is also we have discussed in the previous lecture, and we will discuss in this lecture also. Because these need to be strong. If you want to work on the advanced topic, you need your basic concept clear, right? So we will discuss about that basic concept of OP today also. Then we will discuss about inheritance. Then we will discuss about the subclass and superclass relationship, abstract class and abstract method, and the interface. This topic we will cover by today lecture. Let's discuss some basic points. Basic object-oriented programming. Say for example, class. So class, what is class? A class declaration consists of a class name, a class header, and the class body. So when you are creating a class, you can declare a class which are consisting with a class header. It means it is specifying the type of parameter, the number of parameter, and the primary constructor. These are the class header. And the class body surrounded by curly bracket. So when we declare a class, when we create a class, and after the class name, we will write curly brackets, right? So that curly bracket means the body of that class. Both the header and the body are optional in the Kotlin. So Kotlin is a very easy to understand, like as syntactically also. So if you are creating a class, you can omit the class header and class body in the Kotlin language. This is what the syntax of the Kotlin language is. If the class has no body, curly brackets can be omitted, right? So if you do not provide any parameter to that class and you do not provide any primary constructor to that class, it means there is no header. And if you do not provide any curly brackets, it means that the class has no body. So you can do like that also in the Kotlin. You can create a simple class without any parameter, without any constructor, without curly brackets. That is also we have discussed in the previous lecture, right? So you can refer that point in the previous lecture also. Next. Class in the Kotlin, before creating an object, you must first define a class. So this is the main difference between the class and object also. That is we have discussed in the previous lecture. So class is a virtual entity and object is a physical entity, right? All the object oriented fundamentals are related to the human life. It is related to the human real life. So a class is a, we can say, a blueprint of object, okay? And object is the instance of the class. We can say like that also. So this is what we have discussed in the previous lecture. A class serves a template for creating an object. A class is a template for particular object. To illustrate, think of a class as a blueprint for a house. So if you are going to the architect and say that I need to design my house, so what the architect will do? The architect will design a blueprint for your house. This is what the class is. And when your house is actually constructed, it is your object, right? So it is just a concept about the class now. So what is class? A class is a virtual entity. A class serves a template for creating an object. I think like you can a blueprint for the object. A class is a blueprint of the object, right? The class has properties and method. When you are creating a class as a programmatically, there will be a property and there will be a method, right? Say for example, we can say like a car. So car is a class, we can say like that. And that car class has a multiple properties like as a color, size, name, number of wheels. Okay, these all can be the properties of that class. And a class has the method also. So when you create a class, there will be a functionality. So method, what is method? Method will be the functionality of that particular class, right? So say for example, the functionality of car can be to drive. So to drive will be the method of that particular class. I have given the multiple examples of the class and object in the previous lectures also. So this is what about the class. Next. It outline details such as the number of floor, door, window, etc. So when you are creating a class, say for example, the house. So house will outline the details such as number of floor, doors, window, etc. Using this blueprint, you can then construct the actual house. So this number of floor, door, windows, etc. are the properties of that particular house class. The house itself represent the object, right? Since the same blueprint can be used to construct a multiple house. So when you have created a class programmatically, you can create the multiple object of that particular class which are having the same blueprint of that class, and you can create a multiple object of that particular one class. So you can create a multiple object from a single class. So I hope you are getting this point uh, correctly. What is the class? What is the benefit of class? And what the class actually is in the real life? And class has the properties and methods. Say for example, class properties. In Kotlin, a class property refers to a variable that is associated with a class and its instance. So when you are creating a class programmatically, and in that class you are creating a variable of that particular class, so that variable is called a class properties, and with a class and its instance. So when you are creating a variable in the class, that variable is called class properties. These properties define the characteristics or the attribute of a object. This is very most important point. So when you have created a class programmatically and you are just writing the variable into that class, so that variable is class property, and this property is defining the characteristics of the object, and it is defining the attributes of the object, and it is defining also, you can say like properties of object also. So when you have created a class with properties, and now you are creating an object of that particular class, so all the properties are the attributes of that particular object. I hope you are getting the point. The class property can be mutable or immutable, and they are used to hold the data that belong to a class or a object. So when you are creating a class property, it can be of two types. Mutable class property can be done, and immutable class property can be done into the class. So the mutable class property What is mutable and what is immutable? The mutable class property can change the value at runtime. An immutable class property cannot change the value at runtime. This is the main and big difference between the mutable class property and immutable class property. So if you are creating a variable into the class, right, that can be of two type. That variable can be of two type, mutable variable and immutable variable. So if you are creating a mutable class property, mutable variable, it means that property can change the value at runtime. And if you are creating the immutable property of that class, it means that that property, that value cannot be changed. And they are used to hold the data. And what is the use of that property? The property is used to hold the data that belong to the class or object. So at where your data will actually stored, your data will actually stored into that class property. That is why it is returning over here. They are used to hold the data that belongs to a class or object. So that property can hold the data, can store the data into the memory. Properties and member function of a class by using dot notation. That is also we have discussed in the previous lecture, but it is important right now also. So if you have created a function into the class and now you need to call that function, function means it is providing some functionality, right? It is providing some logical programming. So now you want to call that member function. So at that point you just need to create an object first, and by using that object and dot notation you can access the properties of a class by using dot notation. Now let's discuss about object. When a class is defined, it only provides the specification of the object. So as I told you, when we create a class, it is just a blueprint of that object. It means that it is just providing the specification for the particular multiple objects. It is just a specification of object. So if you are creating an object, that object will have these kind of properties and this kind of method. No memory or storage is allocated at this stage. So when you are creating a class, at that time, no memory will be allocated into the memory, right? So when you create an object of that particular class, at that time, the memory will be allocated to that particular object. To use the member defined with the class, you must create object. So if you want to access the property of that class, if you want to call the method of that class, you need the object of that particular class. Here I am just clearing the basic concept about class and object. What is class and what is object? This is very important point in the object-oriented programming. Once you clear about class in your mind, once you clear about object in your mind, all other things will be easy for you. Right? So there is a multiple points about the class and object. As I am told you, class and object, the difference between class and object. So this is what the object is. Now let's discuss about some method. In Kotlin, class function also referred to as a method. So if you are creating a function into that class, that function called a method into the object-oriented programming. So that method are a function that defined within a class and used to describe the behavior or action of that object of that class can perform. So this is also very important points which are written over here. The first point is, in Kotlin, class functions means a method or function that are defined within the class. So this is the function which are defining into the class programmatically, and it is used to describe the behavior or action that object of that class can perform. So a method is just a simple function. In the object oriented, it's called a method. And what is the benefit of that? It is defining the functions of that particular class. What will be the functionality of that particular class? You can say like that also. If you want to provide some functionality at that time, you need to write method into the class. So the method is the function that are defining within the class and used to describe the behavior or action that object can perform. So when you have defining a class into a method into that class, and now you are creating an object of that class, and after that, by using that object and dot operator, you can call that method. And what the method is for? Method will be used to describe the behavior and action of that particular class. This function can operate on the properties of the class and modify their values to return the information about the object. This function is used for, it is used to operate the properties of the class. So say for example, you have created a class and there is 3 property. Now in this function we use to modify that properties. So what is the use of that method? If you are creating a method of the class, the method will use to modify the value of that properties. And it is also used to return some information about the object. So when you are creating a method, you can do like that also. When you are creating a method, it will use to return some information, some value of that particular object. By using return statement, you can do. This is what the basic concept about the programming. Okay, but currently we are focusing about object-oriented programming. So this can be done by using the method into the class. Next, see over here, I am just providing the example of method. So here I have created a class name as a car with 3 parameter: brand, model, and year. And in that class, I have written 2 method. A first method is without parameter, and second function is with 1 parameter. You can see function drive. I have written the drive function, drive method, and I have just written a print statement into that method. Another method that I have created name is speed with 1 parameter. A parameter name is maximum speed colon integer. And in that method, I have written print statement maximum speed is plus maximum speed. So plus is a concatenation operator. It is used to concat integer value and with string value. So when you want to concatenate integer with string, you can use the plus operator over here. It is a concatenation operator, right? So here I am just focusing on the method. There in that car class, there is 2 method, drive method and a speed method. Drive method has no any parameter. Speed method has 1 parameter. I hope you are understanding this method concept about the object oriented. Now let's discuss about inheritance. It is very important to understand the inheritance. Kotlin class are final by default. Keep this point in your mind. It can say like it is a golden sentence. Kotlin class are final by default. So when you are creating any class into the Kotlin, the class will be final by default. Other than Kotlin programming, let's say for example in Java, all the classes that you are creating, that you are defining, will be the open for all. It will not be final. Right? And if you want to make that class final, you need to declare that class final in the Java. But in the Kotlin, all the class are final by default. Means if you are creating a class, this class can be final by default. So for example, you are creating a tree class. So this tree class will be final class by default. If you are creating a pen class, so pen class will be the final class by default. If you are creating university as a class, so university class will be the final class by default. If you want to allow the class inheritance, mark that class with open modifier. Now, let's understand these. Suppose you have created a super class and the super class will be the final class by default. Now you need to inherit all the properties and method into the child class. So a final class, what is the meaning of final class? Final class means it is preventing the inheritance. If you create a class with final, this class cannot be inherited. But in the Kotlin, all the class is final. So how can you inherit that particular class? Because all the class will be the final class by default. So to provide the inheritance functionality into your programming, you need to open that particular class. So you need to write the open modifier before the class keyword. There is an open keyword also in the Kotlin. Open keyword is used to make your class open to inherit in the child class. I hope you are getting this point. It is very important point to understand. So Kotlin class are final by default. If you want to allow the class to inherit, mark the class with open modifier. Right? If you want to provide the functionality of inheritance into the programming by using Kotlin, you need to open that particular class by open keyword, because all the class will be final by default in the Kotlin. Kotlin method are also final by default. This is also a very important point. If you are creating a method in the particular class, that method will also be a final method by default. As with the class, the open modifier allow overriding them. Now, what we can do, like, suppose there is a super class having a method. Now you are inheriting that super class into the subclass, right? So that method, if you want to override that method into the child class, you need to open that method also. You need to make the method open, right? So if you are creating a class in the Kotlin, it will be by default final. And if you are creating a method of particular class, the method will also be the final. If you need to override that method into the child class, you need to make it open. It means that you need to write open keyword before the fun keyword. A class inherit a superclass where you specify the superclass name after its name. Okay. So if child want to inherit the properties of parent, by default it will not be available. When parent says now it is open, after that the child can access the property of parent. It is a real life connection, real life example, you can say. Suppose there is a parent. So by default, all the properties of parent will be final. So child cannot inherit the parent property directly. If parent says now my properties is open, after that and then only the child can access the properties of parent. If the parent says it is open now, then and only then child can access the property of parent. This is what the concept of inheritance in the Kotlin. It is very important to understand. So by using that colon operator, you can inherit the properties of the parent class, child super class. The empty parenthesis indicate the invocation of the super class default constructor. If you write the empty parenthesis after that colon, it means that you are invoking the super class default constructor of the super class. Right? So this is what the main concept of inheritance. Inheritance means a child can access the properties of the superclass. The child can access the properties of parent, but at what point? When a parent says, now I am the open class, now my properties is open, now my method is open, After that, the child can access the property and child can override the functionality. It means the method of that particular class. I hope you are understanding the basic concept of inheritance. What is inheritance? And how inheritance is working in the Kotlin. Next point. Overriding the method or attribute require the override modifier. Now, if the child class need to override that method which are available into the parent class, there is a override keyword, override modifier. You need to write override before fun keyword in the child class. We will see in the next example in the next slide. If you want to use the parameterized constructor of the superclass, when creating a subclass, provide the constructor argument in the subclass declaration. Let's understand the inheritance concept via the example. See over here, this is the very basic example that I am given. First of all, I have creating a class named as dog, right? And in that dog class, there is a method named as say hello. But you can see, I have written open keyword before class keyword. It means that now the class is open. If I am removing that open keyword from here, it means that the class is final and cannot be inherited. If I am removing that open keyword from here, it means that the class is final by default and this class cannot be inherited. Now, but what I want to do is I want to inherit the dog class into the some another class. That's why I have opened that particular class by using open keyword. Now you can see a say hello method is also open, because what I need to do is I need to override this method into my child class. That is why I have make it open. If I am removing that open keyword, this method will be final by default and cannot be overridden. In the child class, I cannot override that method if I am removing that open keyword from here. But for this example, this class is open and the method is also open. So I can inherit that class and I can override that method. Now, in this line, you can see class Yorkshire colon dog. This colon is used to inherit the class into the child class. So yes, this Yorkshire is the child class and dog is the parent class. Yorkshire is a subclass and dog is a superclass. So all the properties of dog class is available into that Yorkshire. All the method of the dog class will available into the Yorkshire, because all the properties can access by the child. Now I need to override that method over here. That's why I have written override fun say hello. Override fun say hello. Okay, so say hello is a method that I have overridden, that I have overridden in the child class, which are also available into the parent class. Say for example, here also the method name is say hello. Here also the method name is say hello. Both the class has the same method name. Here I have overridden the say hello method and print the statement Wi-Fi. And here I have print the statement wow wow. Right? Here I have written whiff whiff. Now function main. What I have done, I have created the object of the dog class by using that Yorkshire reference. So I am just creating a reference of the dog by using Yorkshire. So I have written well dog colon dog equal to Yorkshire. And now I have called the say hello method. So dog.sayHello method will be called and it will run and provide the output into the console. So this was the, you can say, without any parameterized method, without default constructor, this inheritance example is available for the default constructor only. Now you can see this example I have written over here with the parameterized constructor. See over here, open class tiger with a parameter origin colon string. And in that class, I have written a method named as say hello. When I call this method, it will print a trigger from origin says grr. This line will be printed onto the console. Now, I have created another class, Siberian Tiger, and Siberian Tiger class is inheriting all the properties of the Tiger class with the calling the parameterized constructor. So when I create the object of that particular class, it will first call to the Tiger class constructor, and Siberia value will be available into that origin variable. And when I call the say hello method, it will call a tiger from origin, means a tiger from Siberia says grr. Now you can see here I have written function main. I have creating the object of the Siberian tiger first. So tiger colon Siberian tiger equal to Siberian tiger. And now I am calling tiger dot say hello. So the object is of the tiger, but it is referencing to the Siberian tiger. So first of all, the Siberian tiger will be called in the Siberian tiger class. I am calling the superclass constructor is with a Siberia value. So you can say this Siberia. So you can understand like that. When this line will be executed, the primary constructor of Siberian tiger will be called. And the Siberian tiger class will call to the tiger class constructor internally. So the Siberia value will goes to the origin variable, and the value will be set into that variable. Now what I am doing, I am just calling the method tiger dot say hello. So say hello method will be called, and it will be print like a tiger from Siberia says grr. So this is what the total execution of this program. I hope you are understanding these inheritance concept with default constructor and with parameterized constructor. Now you can pass a constructor argument to the superclass also. There is the third example that I am giving about the inheritance. Say for example, open class lion with two variable means a primary constructor has a two value, name and origin, and a method name is say hello. And in the say hello method, I have printed $name. The lion from $origin says grew. And you can say like a class name is Asiatic with a one parameter as a name. This Asiatic class is inheriting all the properties of lion. And when the lion constructor will be called, I am passing the name equal to the name variable and origin equal to India. So you can say when I pass the value of that particular variable, that variable will be called to the superclass constructor. So we are calling a passing constructor argument to the superclass. So what we are doing is we are passing the argument of the constructor to the superclass. So now what I'm doing is I'm just creating an object of the lion class by referencing Asiatic class, and I'm passing the value Rufo, say for example. So this Rufo, when this line will be executed, the Rufo will goes to the name variable, and when this line will be executed, it will call to the superclass constructor, and name equal to Rufo and origin equal to India. Means Rufo will goes to that name variable and India is goes to that origin variable. So when this line is executed, this much execution is done internally. And second line, lion dot say hello. So when this say hello method will be called, it will goes to the say hello method and print the name. What we have defining the name as Rufo. So Rufo, the lion from origin says grew. This is what the programming of the inheritance with default constructor, with parameterized constructor, and there is third example with a passing constructor argument to the superclass. So I hope you are getting the concept of inheritance. Now we can say like a subclass and superclass refer to the inheritance relationship between a class where a subclass inherit all the properties and method of the superclass. It means child class can access all the properties of the parent class, as the subclass can access all the properties of superclass. What is superclass? The class that is inherited from. It contains the common attribute or method that can be shared by a subclass. In the Kotlin, superclass is defined by a class that does not inherit from any other class or explicitly inherit from the base class. Now, superclass and subclass refer to the inheritance relationship between class, where a subclass inherit all the properties of and the method of the superclass. So, what is subclass? A class that inherit from the other class. It's a superclass. We can say a child class also. The subclass can access or override the properties and method of the superclass and can also define its own properties and method. A subclass in the Kotlin can inherit from the superclass using the symbol, colon symbol. So if you want to access all the properties of the parent, you need to override, and this colon operator is used to override the all the properties of the child class into the superclass. Just a second, huh? I just need to message it. Okay. A subclass in Kotlin can inherit from the superclass using the colon operator. The open keyword used to allow a class or method to inherited. Why? Because all the class will be final by default and all the method will be final by default. Right? So if you want to override the class, you need to open that class. If you need to override that method in the child class, you need to open that method also. Next. You can see a subclass and superclass. Yeah, I have created an animal class over here with a one parameter name and it is open. So now by making that class open, I can inherit that class. So you can say in the dog class, I have inherited the animal class. And the dog class has a method bark. And the animal class has a method make sound. This is what the superclass and subclass relationship. This is the main function. Say for example, I am just creating an object of dog class by passing the buddy value. So that buddy value will goes to that name variable, and this name variable will goes to that animal property also, right? So that buddy value will goes to that animal class property also. And next, when we call the method name as make sound, it inherit method from the animal class. So make sound method will available into the dog class because it is inheriting all the properties. But it will print the value as the buddy make a sound. And now I am calling the bark method of the dog class. So here I am just calling a method bark and it will print the buddy barks. So this is what the whole program about the inheritance. Now let's understand the abstract class. A class may be declared as abstract along with some or all of its member. An abstract member does not have implementation in its class. You don't need to annotate abstract class as a function with open keyword. Right? So you can create a class as an abstract class. Like Java, abstract keyword is used to declare abstract class in the Kotlin. If you want to declare your class as an abstract class, there is a abstract keyword. Abstract class cannot be instantiated. Please understand this point and keep this point in your mind also. An abstract class cannot be instantiated. You can create an object of the, you cannot create the object of the abstract class. Now, if you do not create, if you cannot create the object of the particular class, what you need to do is you just need to inherit that particular class. So if you are creating an abstract class has abstract method and a non-abstract method also. So the abstract class can contain abstract method and non-abstract method also. So how you can inherit that subclass into that particular from the superclass? The member properties and method of an abstract class are non-abstract unless you explicitly use abstract keyword. So if you have created a class, if you have created an abstract class, and in that abstract method you are just creating the properties, that property will be non-abstract by default. But if you want to make it abstract, you need to write abstract keyword before them. Let's take an example. Say, for example, here the class is person, and that class is abstract class. Okay. And in the abstract class, there is a property named as age integer equal to 40. And there is a two method, display SSN and display job. From these two methods, display job method is abstract method and display SSN method is a non-abstract method. And display SSN method has one parameter, SSN as an integer data type, and display job has a one parameter name as a description with a string data type. So this is what you can say like a structure of the abstract class. If you are creating an abstract class can contain abstract property and non-abstract property also. So as you can see, display SSN is a non-abstract method and display job is a abstract method. So if you are creating an abstract method in the abstract class, because we cannot instantiate the abstract class, we cannot create an object of abstract class. So we need to make inheritance to access the properties of abstract class. Say for example, this is the real life example. An abstract class name is a person. And over here I have written the init block, you can see. So the init block is executed before the object creation. Keep this point in your mind also. When you are creating an object, so the init method will be called before the object creation, right? And then I have created a display SSN method and print the statement. My SSN is $SSN. And here abstract function display job is the abstract method. Now what I'm doing is I am just inheriting this person class into the teacher class. I am just inheriting this person class into the teacher class, right? So all the properties of the person class will be available into the teacher class. And there is a display job method, abstract method. So when I'm inheriting this class into the child class, we need to override that abstract method into the child class. Otherwise, it will give me the error. So I have written override function display job, and in that I have just printed the description over here. So in the function main, I am just creating a variable object name as AVT, referencing the teacher class, Mr. Anand Tak. This is what my name is. So this name is goes to that teacher constructor. This teacher is inheriting the person property, so that name will goes to that person name also, right? And it will print the my name is Mr. Anand Tak first. And then I have called the method display job. So this display job method will be called of the teacher class. Okay. And I am a computer science teacher will be display onto the console. And after that, I have called avt.display SSN 92744. It is the integer value, or you can provide the string value also. So this is what I am calling the display SSN method, which are available into the which we are overridden into the child class. So this is what the concept of abstract class. We cannot create an instance of the abstract class. Abstract class can contain abstract method and non-abstract method, right? So, and the abstract keyword will use to create an abstract class, and abstract keyword will use to create the abstract method also. Now let's understand the interface. Interface in Kotlin can contain declaration of abstract method as well as method implementation. So in the interface, there will be an abstract method and method implementation also. What made the difference from the abstract class and interface? Cannot store state. So the abstract class can store the state, but the interface cannot store the state. They can have properties, but these need to be abstract or provide accessor implementation. So in the interface, all the properties need to be abstract, or you can need to provide the accessor implementation. Kotlin interface are similar to interface in Java. They can contain definition of the abstract method as well as implementation of non-abstract method. Meaning the interface may have property, but it need to be abstract or has to provide accessor implementation. It need to provide the implementation into the child class. Interface keyword is used to define interface in the Kotlin. You can declare properties in the interface. The property declared in the interface can either be abstract or provide implementation for accessor. If you are creating an interface, that interface can provide abstract property. And if you do not want to provide that property as abstract, you need to implement this property into the accessor, means a child class. Properties declared in the interface can't have backing field, and therefore accessor declared in the interface can't be referenced them. Right? An interface can derive from other interface. One interface can derive from another interface, meaning it can both provide implementation of their members and declare new function and property. Quite naturally, these implementation, such as interface, are only required to define missing implementation. You can see over here, here I have provided the simple example of interface, name as my interface. I have created an interface, name as my interface. And in that interface, I have created a variable, say for example, prop colon integer. This variable by default abstract variable in the interface. So if you are creating a property of the interface, this property will be abstract by default. And I have provided another property with implementation colon string get method equal to foo. So this foo method is there. You can see I have created a foo method with it is used to print the prop, means an integer value. And a child class is implementing the interface name as my interface, and which are assigning the value to that particular prop variable, prop class property. Prop interface, right? But you can see like that here I have provided override keyword. So when you are inheriting the interface into the another class, you need to override that particular property of the interface. Another example, interface named. In the named interface, there is a property where name is name colon string. So that named interface is inheriting into the person interface. So a class can inherit the interface can be inherited into the another interface also. Now, the named interface is available into the person also. In the person interface, value first name colon string, val last name colon string, and there is a method name as get. Override val name. Why? Because these interface is available into the person interface also. So I need to override that property. Override value name colon string with a get equal to $first name $last name. And now I am creating a data class employee. Implementing the name is not required if you are creating the data class over here. So override value string, override value first name, override value last name, and value colon position. And here I have created a person. So you can say this is what the data class available into the Kotlin. It is not related to interface, but I have provided in the example. This is the data class. And the person, you can say a person is an interface that we have created. Let's have some summary. In Kotlin, OOP is supported through core concept like inheritance, abstraction, and interface. Inheritance allows subclass to inherit properties and method from a superclass, promoting code reuse, while the open keyword is used to enable inheritance since the class is final by default in the Kotlin. A subclass can override or add new functionality to the inherited method. Abstract class cannot instantiate it directly and serve a template with abstract method that must be implemented by subclass. So when you are creating an abstract method, it cannot be instantiated directly. You need to inherit that particular class into the child class and override the method. Interface define a contract that classes must follow. If you have created interface and you are you just need to override that interface into the child class, it must be follow, allowing multiple inheritance through the implementation of multiple interface. Kotlin concise syntax and feature like null safety enhance the OOP concept, allowing developer to create modular, reusable, and maintainable code. Keyword. What are the keywords that we have defining by today's lecture? Open. Open keyword is allow a class or method to be inherited or overridden, as a class are final by default and method are also a final by default. Super. Superclass, a super keyword is used to refer to the superclass. You can call a superclass constructor, you can call a superclass method, and you can access the property of superclass by using super keyword. Is used to access the superclass method or properties. Colon is the operator is used to denote the inheritance or interface implementation into the Kotlin. So the colon operator is used to inherit the class and is used to implement the interface. Abstract is the keyword that declare a class or method that cannot be instantiated directly and must be implemented by subclass. Interface is a keyword is define the contract that classes can implement containing abstract method and properties. Override is the keyword. It is used to mark the method or property that override a method or property from the superclass or inherited. Let's have some MCQ questions. Which of the following is a key principle of object-oriented programming? Inheritance, recursion, procedural programming, or iteration? So the right answer is inheritance is the key principle of object-oriented programming. Second question. In the Kotlin, how can you make a class inherit from another class? By using the extends keyword, by using the colon symbol, by using the inherit keyword, by using the implements keyword. So the right answer is B. By using the colon symbol, you can make the class inherit from the another class. In Kotlin, which keyword is used to allow a class or method to be inherited or overridden? So which keyword is used to allow the class to be inherit? A, abstract, B, override, C, open, D, final. So the right answer is open. Open is a keyword which is used to allow inheritance into the class and override the method of that particular class. Because a class can be final by default and a method is also final by default, you need to open that particular class to inherit. You need to open that particular method to the override. What is the purpose of the super keyword in the Kotlin? A. It allows a method to be called from subclass. It calls a method or access property from the superclass. It makes a class as an abstract. It defines an abstract method. So what is the use of super keyword? The right answer is B. It is used to call a method or access a property from the superclass. Right? What is the abstract class in Kotlin? A class that can be instantiated. B, a class that cannot have properties. C, a class that contains at least one abstract method and cannot be instantiated directly. D, a class that does not support inheritance. So right answer is C, a class that contains at least one abstract method, can be an abstract class and cannot be instantiated directly. So if you are creating abstract class, you cannot create the instance of that abstract class. How do you declare interface in the Kotlin? A, abstract class interface name curly brackets. B, interface name curly brackets. C, class interface name curly brackets. D, abstract interface name curly bracket. So right answer is B. By using that interface keyword, you can create interface in the Kotlin But what is the syntax? Interface, then interface name, and then curly brackets. In Kotlin, which of the following is a key difference between abstract class and interface? This is the very important question. Which of the following is a key difference? What is the difference between abstract class and interface? A. Abstract class can implement method, but an interface cannot. Abstract class can have both abstract and non-abstract method, while interface can only have abstract method. C. An abstract class can be instantiated directly, while an interface cannot. D. An abstract class cannot have properties, but an interface can. So right answer is B. An abstract class can have both abstract class and non-abstract method that we have discussed. While an interface can only have abstract method. So you are creating a method in the interface, it will be abstract. Eighth question, which keyword is used to define a method in a class that must be implemented in a subclass? Which keyword is used to define a method in a class that must be implemented in the subclass? Open, abstract, override, interface. So if you are creating a method as abstract, it is necessary to implement into the subclass. So make a method as an abstract need to be override into the subclass. How does method overriding work in the Kotlin? It is also a very important question about the method overriding. A subclass define a method with the same name and signature as a method in the superclass and mark it with the override keyword. A subclass define a method with a different name than the superclass method. C. A super keyword is used to prevent overriding in the subclass. D. A subclass cannot override method from a superclass in Kotlin. So right answer is A. A subclass define a method with the same name and signature as a method which are available in superclass, marks it with the override keyword. So say for example, superclass has the method name as right, and subclass has the method name as right. So you need to override that method into the subclass. Which of the following is true about inheritance in the Kotlin? A class can inherit from the multiple class directly. Inheritance in the Kotlin allow a subclass to inherit both properties and method from the superclass. All classes in the Kotlin are abstract by default. The extends keyword is used for inheritance in the Kotlin. So right answer is B. Interface in the Kotlin allow subclass to inherit properties and method of the superclass. This is the self-assessment question. You can say like, what is the purpose of the class? How do you create an object of the class? What is the difference between class and object? What are the class properties and how you can define? How do you declare a mutable property? What is the role of these keyword? In which scenario these keyword will be used? What is the purpose of super keyword? How can you define the method inside a class? How does inheritance work in the Kotlin? And you can write what is abstract class and what is in interface over here also. So this is the self-assessment question that we have I am given to you. Now let's see what we have done in this lecture. Again, we have discussed about inherit, first of all class, then class properties, then object with a method, what is inheritance with a 3 example, what is the difference between subclass and superclass and the relationship of subclass and superclass with example, what is abstract class with example, what is interface with example that we have covered in this lecture today. So I hope you are getting the points that we are discussing in the today's lecture about interface, abstract class and inheritance. I hope you are getting the point. So if you have any query, any question, any doubt regarding these topics or regarding previous topics, you can contact me anytime. And this is what the self-assessment question. You can assess yourself by this question. And these all are the references that I have given to you. You can refer these books and material for the better knowledge and skill. So that's all from my side. Thank you